Hi, I'm Marcelo Lang. I'm a Global Marketing Director for Hansen Animal Health, and I'm here to talk about the modes of action of probiotics for food animals, together with my colleague, Steve Lerner.
Hi, I'm Steve Lerner, Head of Marketing and Product Management for North America for Hansen Animal Health and Nutrition. Well, we believe that anyone who is responsible for feeding or caring for animals, whether that's nutritionists, veterinarians, or production managers, should be aware and understand how the products they choose, such as probiotics, actually work in the animals. We believe that their questions of how do these work and why should I use them are very important. And we feel that the better they can understand the various modes of action by which probiotics exert their beneficial effects, the better they understand that, the more likely they're going to make a good choice for the animals in their care.
How do you describe the main effects of probiotics in animals?
So when we look at the typical measures of our industries, when we're looking at production of meat, milk, and eggs, we tend to focus on those measures that I mentioned earlier, measures that give us the ability to calculate a return on investment. But we believe, in truth, that what we're seeing when products like effective probiotics are used is that a great percentage of the animals, whether it's a herd, a lot, a flow, or a flock, depending on the animal, a greater percentage of them is simply functioning normally, is achieving as most of their genetic potential as they can based on the nutrients being provided and the environment. And all of that is driven by a healthy and well-functioning digestive tract. And we have great evidence that when you put probiotics in feed, that these organisms work in three major ways. They can interact with the feedstuffs being consumed by the animal. They can interact in a positive way with other microorganisms in the animal, and they can interact directly with cells within the host that has consumed them. These are the three major classes of actions of probiotics. If we look a little more deeply into these actions, into these buckets, when we think about them, we can look at direct modes of action that occur in those three buckets. When we look at interactions with feedstuffs, it's bioconversion or nutrients. When you look at interactions with microorganisms, we focus on direct antagonism and durable changes in the microbiome that I mentioned earlier. And then, of course, when you're looking at interactions with the host, we focus on competitive exclusion, increasing the absorptive capacity of the gut, barrier functions that keep things moving through the intestinal tract out of the body proper, and immune functions. And we certainly recognize that these different modes of action are compartmentalized. Some are going on in the lumen of the intestines, inside the tube. Some are going on at the surface area of the cells of the epithelial layer. Some are going on between two cells, and some are involved with cells within the immune system of the animal itself.
Something, Steve, you mentioned in these interactions with feedstuffs, bioconversion. Why is this important as a mode of action?
Well, let's jump into that. If we're talking about bioconversion, we're really talking about the capacity of certain probiotic organisms to convert sugars to acids. And this reduction in pH is something they do in an attempt to create a favorable environment for themselves and those like them, and to create a relatively hostile environment for other organisms. And luckily for the animals that have consumed these converters of sugars to acids, the bacteria for which they're creating a hostile environment tend to be pathogenic in nature, tend to be the E. coli and Salmonella type bacteria that can actually be pathogenic and harmful to the host. So the ability to convert sugars to acids is a probiotic action that some of our strains of organisms can engage in to create a benefit for the host.
How will this knowledge be shared with the people registering for the learning program?
Well, very good question, Marcelo. So our aim here is education. And the modules that you'll be subscribing to begin with some background on the subject. It speaks to why you might want to have bioconversion or enzyme production in the case of interactions with feedstuffs. We'll then share with you the in vitro assays that have been done that prove that this action is actually occurring. And when practical, we can share with you field observations that take the concept that we learn in vitro and apply it in an in vivo setting so that you can translate what you believe is happening into what you can observe in the field. And this is the strategy that we're using to bring this knowledge to you. So you can subscribe to it in a way that gives you the background, gives you the assays, provides you the scientific evidence in the field. Well, the next section, next large category would be interaction with microorganisms. And in that, there are two major subjects. The first would be direct antagonism, which speaks to the capacity of certain probiotic organisms to literally secrete materials, bacteriocins or antimicrobial peptides that actively can kill potentially pathogenic organisms. And then the second is one of my favorite subjects, these durable changes in the microbiome. Remembering that the microbiome in animals represents about 40 trillion living organisms. And we're providing a daily fed probiotic in an effort to create a beneficially balanced microbiome within the animal that gives them the capacity to not only survive, but to thrive in their environment.
These interactions with other microbes, they seem to be very complex. How difficult is it to learn about them in the modes of action learning program?
But our effort here to provide learning modules starts at the beginning. It defines for you what the microbiome is. It describes for you what we mean when we say eubiosis or normal homeostasis in the animal. It can contrast that with dysbiosis, when the microbiome is out of balance. So understanding this movement from a dysbiosis to a eubiosis to a good state is important as background. And then we begin to fill in some details about how individual strains of microorganisms can directly impact these populations of different kinds of bacteria within the microbiome. And then after you understand how it can work, we provide additional details from scientific studies showing the positive impact of beneficial bacteria on the microbiome in vivo in groups of animals in the field. So it goes from background information to lab assays to observations in the field to provide you the whole story across a series of learning steps that you can subscribe to as many times as you'd like in the privacy and comfort of your own home or office.
Steve, let's continue to explore the contents of the modes of action learning program, okay?
Sure.
What's in the third module of our program?
Well, in the third large bucket are the very important interactions of probiotic organisms with their host. As mentioned earlier, there are really four subjects within that bucket. Competitive exclusion, which is the capacity of probiotic organisms to prevent the binding of potentially pathogenic organisms with cells of the host. There is the increased absorptive capacity, the ability to absorb nutrients across the cell layer of the intestines. Of course, the more nutrients that are available through digestion, the more you absorb, the more resources you have to produce meat, milk, or eggs, depending upon the animal. There are the barrier functions, those functions that keep things that are moving through the intestines from crossing over into the body. Some animals, when they're exposed to stress, can develop leaky gut, where pathogenic organisms and raw food materials can actually move into the body and cause infection and other significant problems, but certainly problems that will limit productivity. And then again, another very interesting topic is the capacity of probiotic organisms to interact with immune functions. And we've got great data, again, starting with the concept, filling in with laboratory assays that illustrate the capacity of probiotic organisms to have stimulatory functions on cells of the immune system, and then eventually some data that will show the reduction in pathogens present in lymph nodes, for example, because of the beneficial actions of probiotic organisms.
I have a question to you, Steve. So why do you think it's important for nutritionists and veterinarians to know about these interactions between probiotics and the host animals?
Well, we believe that nutritionists and veterinarians certainly want to be informed as they can about scientific opportunities. And certainly the overwhelming evidence in agriculture and in human medicine are that probiotics can have a profoundly beneficial effect on organisms, on animals or people, again, depending upon the discipline. So we believe that those who are consulting to producers would want to be as informed as possible to understand the choice, the basis for choices that are provided to them. And the evidence is overwhelming that probiotics represent a good choice for supporting normal animals, for supporting animals' capacity to achieve genetic potential. So we believe if nutritionists and vets and managers understand the capacity that probiotics can deliver, then they can make the most informed choice about using those particular kinds of products. So the bottom line is to ensure that animals in our care have the best chance of being successful. We believe that if you use proper materials to get proper fermentation and feedstuffs, if you can deliver clean, nutritious food, if you have animals that by and large are healthy and performing normally, and you have a reduction in the number of headaches that any producer is experiencing, then maybe producers, nutritionists, vets will have some free time to do what they want to do, to live a normal life. So we believe that if you can supply normal feed and have normal animals, then your chance of success goes up, your stress and headaches go down, and you're in a great state of life. This is the bottom line. Choose a class of products that has a good chance of delivering success. And sometimes success is measured in financial rewards. Sometimes success is measured in reduced stress. Sometimes it's measured in sustainability. And probiotics can deliver on all of those fronts.